Welcome to Bare Bones. With your host, Danny Meehan and Dr. Mason West.
Welcome into this episode of Bare Bones. As always, I am Dr. Mason West. Today, no Danny. He is busy off doing some other stuff, but we're still having a good time. We're going to preview this game that's going to kick off not too far after this show concludes. So as we have started doing this year, we are going to start with a chart review. This is just basically where we're going to talk a little bit about what happened last week and flow into what that's going to mean for the upcoming game tonight in this instance. So as we know, Bears are still defeated. Too many lost games in a row, unfortunately, and it is what it is. But we saw some positives, we saw some negatives. One of the biggest things is we saw Justin Fields throw for 360 yards, 4 touchdowns, and a passer rating of 132.7. Now, also in that game, right, costly fumble, scoop and score for a touchdown to tie the game 28-28. But in addition to that, he threw an interception on that final drive, unable to seal the deal. Question ends up becoming, is this something that Justin can repeat in terms of what we saw in the first 3 quarters? He was essentially perfect. The only incompletion he had in the first half was that Hail Mary, which who cares? I think it was 16 straight before that, which set a new Chicago Bear passer record for consecutive completions. And that did carry into the third quarter to an extent. Now, end of the third quarter, fourth quarter is where it started to go downhill a little bit. The question ends up becoming who's at fault. We always want to play the blame game, right? And everyone had a bit to play. I already talked about a couple of the issues that Justin had. The defense was a sieve, right? They allowed the Broncos and Russell Wilson. And Russell Wilson's having a better year this year than he did last year. So it's not like, he's been horrendous or anything. But still, they allowed a undermanned, not very good Broncos team to come back. And it's incredibly frustrating because, you go out and you hire a defensive culture head coach in Matt Eberflus. And one of the weakest points on this team is inherently the defense, right? It's an old cover 2. There's no creativity. There's no little wrinkles in there. You can play cover 2 in this league. Other teams do it. But, it's not just your straight up mom and pop going back even to the Lovie Smith, Rod Marinelli cover 2. You can't lead the league in lowest pressure generated by your front 4, but also be at the bottom of the league in blitz rate. It just doesn't work that way. And unfortunately, the players that were brought in haven't been able to step up in order to make this defense truly better, right? You have Javon Dexter and you have Zach Pickens, who, second, third round picks who you're not going to contribute right away, but they really haven't done much. Justin Jones has not been able to create pressure. You go get Yannick Ngakoue on a 1-year mercenary deal, and he hasn't been able to do anything. He's got 1 sack on the year. You go and get 2 linebackers who are supposed to be clear upgrades, TJ Edwards and Tremaine Edmonds, who really haven't been. Tremaine so far, he hasn't been worth the contract that he was given, which I believe was around $80 million. He gets tackles, but are they game changing tackles? Are they setting a precedent for what's going to be going forward? No. They're allowing these running backs, these receivers downfield before they make the tackle. There's not a lot of instinct on his end, is the best way to put it. He's got, I believe it's 3 tackles for loss on the season, which is terrible. Tremaine Edmonds, there needs to be more. And really what we saw out of Tremaine Edmonds, to go back, and I think, and Danny would highlight this, is he was pretty rough in Buffalo. Not bad, but not good either, until the Buffalo Bills pass rush got better. And he got worse when Von Miller got hurt. When the Bills are struggling a little more to generate that pass rush, Tremaine Edmonds struggled more. And that's not something, you don't hand that contract to a linebacker that needs a pass rush that much. And actually, at the end of the day, in all reality, that's just what this defense is. This defense is a team that needs that front four to create pressure. You need a dude at your three tech, and you need people who can get upfield on the edges. So, the defense was a problem, and the scheme was a problem. The coaching was inherently a problem. You look, and after Justin had that 20-yard scramble, they basically took the ball out of his hands. Now all of a sudden, heavy run, which is fine. They were getting yards on the ground, but ultimately, you didn't let your best player take over, do what he needed to do until all of a sudden you ask him to pass it. We look at that 3rd and 10, right? The one right before they end up having to drive down the field again. I believe it was, they're going for they're trying to convert on 3rd down. Justin throws it to Cole Kmet. Kmet can't hang on to it, falls over, have to punt it away. And unfortunately, right, the Broncos are able to march down the field. That to me is a problem. I don't understand why on that play, that 3rd and 10, why Cole Kmet is the main dude. I don't understand why on the interception, why Cole Kmet's running that route in that spot. I want my first read to be DJ Moore, Darnell Mooney. So JT O'Sullivan had a great example of this, and I'm going to get into this a little bit later. But JT O'Sullivan had a great conversation about why Cole Kmet should have been running that route in that spot and how he would set it up differently. And that's, again, JT O'Sullivan QB school. But I'll get to that when I get to one of the other points. Ultimately, the question tonight becomes, was that game against the Broncos just a game against the Broncos? Because teams are eating up against this team. A good example, Commanders ended up beating this team, but it was in a shootout. Or was it true that Justin took another step? Was he seeing the field better, right? Was the scheme better? Where now all of a sudden these wide receivers, tight ends, etc., were actually able to get out and get open more and create more separation? Or was it just a bad defense? We're going to talk about that a little bit. So I said we're going to talk about this, and it's right here, Concussed Corner. My Concussed Corner from that game was having Cole Kmet be the first read on that interception that ended the game. Now, again, JT O'Sullivan at QB School did a full game breakdown on his Patreon. You should go sign up for that. He does awesome stuff. He's consistently doing Bears things. If the Bears keep doing as terrible as they are, he may have to stop. But it doesn't make sense on that interception to have Kmet run that route. He's not sudden enough. Whether Kmet ran the wrong route, whether Justin threw the ball in the wrong spot, you should have DJ Moore or Donald Mooney in that spot as the first read, and you can put Cole Kmet as the furthest out option over there. Because really, when you're reading that, you're reading it inside out. 1, 2, 3. If you wanted Cole Kmet to line up there so you don't give it away, all you have to do is have, in that instance, Darnell and Kmet switch spots essentially on the route. So again, you're still having Darnell be the one that comes back. He's got a little more wiggle to him. He can create more separation. And now all of a sudden, there's more room for error. So that's a scheme issue for me. But that was my Concussed Corner. It was very frustrating. Now, there's a comedy of errors that went on in that game. It wasn't just that. The Bears blew one of the biggest leads I think they've ever had in that game, and that was incredibly frustrating. In the 102 plus years that this stupid franchise has existed, a franchise that I love. And that, again, there's multiple chefs in the kitchen that are responsible for that. It wasn't just that, but that was the one that stood out to me. Really quickly, let's have a brief conversation about our sponsor. It is a time to talk Achilles ankle repair. The first thing to hit the ground when you play most sports is your foot. So why isn't your foot and ankle strength a priority for you? Achilles was created by founder Trey Villarreal and co-founder Eric Schlossberg to give every athlete the advantage to perform with confidence and allow them to play at 100%, even after suffering serious injuries. It is trusted by collegiate and professional teams all over the nation. The Achilles has been shown to increase muscle development by as much as 320% in the lower leg muscles. I use this myself for my personal ankle strength with all of my lower extremity patients. Often transitioning from the table to functional movements in standing can be hard due to ankle weakness. Traditional bands are too weak, and many standing balance exercises are too hard. Achilles bridges the gap by bulletproofing the ankles and knees. Achilles can be used for rehabilitation, injury prevention, and overall strengthening. So it is great for the clinic, the gym, or the home. Want to see in action? head to their Instagram, Achilles_Nation, or my own personal page, dr.westsportspt. Then go to anklerepair.com to order yours and use code NATION for free shipping. Achilles. Honestly, it's fantastic. You absolutely should go get it if you have any ankle problems. If you have kids that are trying to develop for performance, it's top of the line. All right, now moving on to our training room roundup. So, funny enough, right, when you ultimately look at this training report, the first one that pops up is Chase Claypool. His injury is other. Chase is done with the Chicago Bears. Not going to spend a lot of time here. In theory, the Bears are still trying to find a trade partner. There's really not a reason to cut him per se, because at this point in time, it's not really saving you anything besides a roster spot, and you can just make him inactive. One thing to keep in mind, there is, rules between the NFL and the NFL Players Association in terms of, essentially forcing a player not to play in a way or forcing them to go home. You can only do it for so long. So that's there's going to be an end to that timeline. So moving on, unfortunately, Eddie Jackson, Jalen Johnson, and of course, Kyler Gordon, who is still on injured reserve, are out this game. My understanding, all three of them should be back next week. Eddie Jackson, Jalen Johnson, Kyler Gordon, coming off of IR, should be back next week. Would have been great to have them today. Didn't happen. For Eddie Jackson, that foot, really, it's just a matter of, it's a day-to-day thing, and it was very close. Jalen Johnson potentially could have played today, but the Bears are thinking a little bit more longer term with him, which to me really speaks volumes about what they see for him, because obviously, contract negotiations still going on there. Tevin Jenkins is back, full participant, right? They ended up, the Bears cut Nathan Peterman and activated Tevin Jenkins. So he will play today. The question is he starting? Is he just rotating in? Last year, there was that whole rotation that was going on with, Lucas Patrick rotating at guard. I expect something like that to be happening to an extent today, just because of the fact that Tevin has not played since the summer. That's a long time to not be playing there. And this did just pop up. I know Matthew Brown and Torian Whitfield both highlighted this. Dick Butkus passed away today at the age of 80. This is one of those things where you would hope that, the team could really, really step up and do a little showing here for Dick Butkus by not, giving up 30 plus points to this Commanders team. But rest in peace, Dick Butkus. That's a huge loss for Bears Nation as a whole. Heart and soul of those teams. It's one of the few players that you can really go back to who's can still been a big part of the Bears organization, and hope the best for his family. Jaquan Brisker, and it's a hard transition, but Jaquan Brisker, he actually was out there pregame, running around, testing out the hamstring. Overall, apparently he looked pretty good from what was being reported there. Really, and then actives are going to be due in the next 15-ish minutes or so. So we should hear what's happening there. Really hope Jaquan can give it a go, because if not, right now, all of a sudden you have three entirely different people in your secondary, and you can't do that. Sam Howell is not necessarily a dude or anything, but even your average NFL quarterback is going to be able to do work, one, against this cover two defense in general, but two, against three backup secondary players. Harmon was signed as a backup safety, so that was huge to have some safety depth, because if there is another injury, not really sure where else they would go at this point without that individual. Looking down at the Washington Commanders, there's really no one here to worry about in terms of not playing. Curtis Samuel was limited the last 2 days with a quad issue. They are unspecified in terms of game status. I would expect him to play. Jahan Dotson was a full participant on Wednesday. He will be playing. With that ankle was really never a concern. And those are really the two biggest names to keep that you would want to be thinking about when it comes to the Commanders. So they'll be pretty much full health, which does not help the Bears' case. Knee-jerk reaction. This is a hot take going into this next week. This shouldn't be a hot take, but I feel like I have to say it that Justin Fields' time with the Bears isn't over. Right? You go on Twitter, you go on all these different all these different forums, and you see that put Tyson Bagent in, crash for Caleb, trying to get Caleb Williams to this team. Currently, yes, the Bears sit. If the season were to end today, they have the first and second overall pick. But if Justin can be Broncos Justin across most of these games that are left, with 13 games left, with less turnovers like we saw in the fourth quarter, he may still be able to prove to be that dude. If you look across the time that Justin's been with the Bears, these are all some Justin Fields stats in losses. So in 2021 versus the Vikings, 320 yards, 1 touchdown, passer rating of 96.6. 2022 versus the Vikings, 255 yards, 1 touchdown, 0 interceptions, 118.8 rating. 2022 versus the Cowboys, 211 yards, 2 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, 120.0 rating. 2022 versus the Dolphins, 301 yards, 4 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, 106.7 rating. 2022 versus the Lions, 314 yards, 4 touchdowns, 1 interception, 99.4 rating. 2022 versus the Eagles, 247 yards, 2 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, 119.5 rating. And of course, last week against the Broncos, I already mentioned those stats. Those were all losses. You're telling me that the problem is Justin Fields? That's ludicrous. Is there things that he needs to improve on? Yes, especially this year. This year, there was a ton of things that he can do better. However, he's not the reason this team is where it's at. All the losses from last year and then so far this 0-4 start. The problem is, the fish rots at the head. I know Bill Zimmerman, also part of Windy City Gridiron, says this all the time. It starts up with ownership. It trickles down into the GM and with Ryan Poles, which I'm still not. I'm 50-50 on him right now. Conversation for a different day. And really Matt Eberflus. If the Bears lose tonight, there's a decent chance Matt Eberflus is fired. The Bears never do it. They don't fire coaches in season. And I'm not saying he's lost the locker room, but he has fumbled the situation. Everything from the Chase Claypool stuff to obviously the coaching. I already talked about how this defense is atrocious. How he's supposed to be the culture and the defense guy. The defense sucks. The culture sucks. Right now, it's just about if you were to let him go, who would take over? Because you're not only replacing a head coach, you're replacing a defensive coordinator because Alan Williams isn't here. And so who do you go to then? I guess maybe Luke Getsy. If the Bears go out and they perform tonight on offense and they put up 20 plus points, Getsy's probably not going anywhere. If they put up 3, maybe you're letting Luke Getsy go. But are you really going to elevate Getsy, who was on the hot seat in the first 3 weeks? No. Do you go with Hightower, the special teams coordinator? I guess. I mean, technically, the special teams coach knows everyone in that locker room because you have to as a special teams guy. But that doesn't really make sense. I mean, maybe the only thing that would make any degree of sense is you call up someone who's done it before. Kind of like what the Colts, not what the Colts did. The Colts called up a random guy in Jeff Saturday. But you call up someone on the outside. You call up a Lovie Smith. You call up a Rod Marinelli, and you say, hey, can you help steer this ship just for the rest of the season? You elevate a Hoke into defensive coordinator, and you go from there. What I would also add into that, so going back to that, upcoming, we got Commanders tonight, Vikings, Panthers, Saints, Lions, Cardinals, Falcons, Packers, and they got Vikings twice, Lions twice in that. If Bears won 6 of those games, that could be enough to say Justin's the dude. Again, if he performs like he did in the Broncos game. An example, too, of that is Raiders won 6 games last year, and they ended up picking 7th in the NFL draft last year. Panthers, Saints, Falcons all won 7 games, and they picked 8, 9, 10. If you're picking 7, 8, 9, 10 with your pick, you're not getting a Caleb Williams, obviously. Right now, are you okay resetting the clock with someone like a Drake May out of UNC, a JJ out of Michigan, a Shedeur Sanders out of Colorado, an Ewers out of Texas? Are we really sure that any of those guys are better than what Justin ultimately ceiling can be? I have no idea. Derek highlighted here, bear in mind with JF's stats that each year of his NFL career has seen worse passing numbers than Trubisky. Correct. 100% correct. What I would argue is that while not perfect overall, first of all, the defense significantly better for all those teams, giving Trubisky short fields. Look at the 2018 season, right? I mean, how many turnovers did that team generate? Specifically against the Bills, I remember it was crazy. It was turnover after turnover. It was short field after short field. But ultimately, the problem was that Mitch just couldn't get it done. He couldn't move the ball. Now, right now, or Justin probably has better weapons. DJ Moore being your number one receiver. Yes, that's better than Allen Robinson, number one receiver. An older, more older sounds bad. A step further along, Darnell Mooney. That's better. But at the end of the day, I would take Justin 10 times out of 10 times over Mitch Trubisky. It's just different. Justin's different. That's just me. And also, one step further back to my point, Panthers could steal a few wins due to their division. They play a lot of those same teams, right? Playing the Saints, playing the Falcons. So if you end up, if Panthers end up picking third for the sake of argument, or second even, and the Bears pick like seventh, are you comfortable saying, hey, Justin, we're going to move on. We're going to trade you to Atlanta, because I know that's a place that keeps popping up, and we're going to draft J.J. McCarthy out of Michigan? I'm not. I mean, at best, yes, it might move you forward or reset that clock, you could say, and now you have a rookie contract for an extended period of time. But I'm not confident that that rookie's gonna become anything. I'm not confident that Shedeur Sanders is gonna be a dude. Different conversation if you get the number one pick, but that's just me. To be perfectly honest, Eberflus is gone regardless of what happens tonight or this year. There are two tweets I want to bring up to highlight why he's gone. This is from Bill Zimmerman, mentioned him earlier, at Bill T. Zimmerman on Twitter. Matt Eberflus team pressure rates per PFREF. In 2018 with the Colts, he was 30th. 2019 with the Colts, 23rd. 2020 with the Colts, 18th. And that was really just because all of a sudden now you have DeForest Buckner. 2021, 31st with the Colts. And then last 2 years, the Bears, 31st and 30th. For the math nerds out there, the mean was 27.1. You're averaging being the 27th best pressure rate defense. You cannot do that in today's NFL. It is a passing league. You need to be able to pressure the quarterback, and he has shown that he's not been able to do that. I could get on a whole rant about this. I'm not going to do anything. We're going to go to another tweet that highlights something similar. This is from Jonathan Wood, at Jonathan_Wood1. Opposing QBs against the Bears this year are completing 70% of passes for 8.6 yards per attempt, with 10 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, and 115.9 passer rating. 7 NFL QBs have a higher completion percent, 2 a higher yards per attempt, 1 has more touchdowns, and 0 have a higher passer rating. That's not good. He's the defense guy, and his defense sucks. Again, it doesn't matter if they win tonight. It doesn't matter if they get 6-7 wins. Lovie Smith got fired after a 10-win season. Eberflus is gone. Simple as that. And the only reason I think he sticks around is because of what I talked about earlier, where you really don't have anyone else to go to, which is a shame. Ain't this humorous? Something a little quirky or funny? This game is going to be an incredible test of the offensive line and could be what ultimately sinks this game. So when you look at essentially this mismatch that we have, the Commanders' big four of Allen, Payne, Young, and Sweat have a combined for 55 pressures and 10 sacks through 4 games. Per PFF, Young has a win percentage of 18.1. He's almost winning 25% a quarter of the time. Allen's at 14.5, Sweat's at 11.1, and Payne is only 5.3. Payne's a little lower, but he's also interior. It is what it is. The Bears' expected starting O-line, if Jenkins isn't back, has allowed 47 pressures and 6 sacks per PFF. Lucas Patrick has given up the 4th most pressures among centers at 10. And Darnell Wright, he's a rookie. He's shown a lot of flashes. There's things in that game, last game. We're moving to the Commanders, but he's getting to a little bit of a pass at being that rookie because he's shown so many flashes. Has given up the 6th most pressures amongst tackles with a minimum of 100 pass block snaps. Again, I say to you, that is not good. It was definitely a choice. And when you watch the film of last game against the Broncos, Cody Whitehair, I love the dude. He has no push left. He's got no juice. He's not moving anyone in the run game. in the pass game, he's getting pushed back more often than not. Lucas Patrick looks lost out there. And again, I mentioned Darnell Wright, while having plenty of bright spots, he looks very tired in that fourth quarter, head down, lunging, pulled. There was actually one hold that was missed that would have really set the Bears back, but luckily that got missed. So it's to me, and the reason I'm putting it in this category, it's funny that ultimately something of this nature, like how the magnitude of how good this defensive line for the Commanders is versus how bad the offensive line for the Bears is. That discrepancy to me is funny. And I'm really hoping that Chris Morgan, the offensive line coach, Luke Getsy this weekend figured out what the heck to do here, whether it was, help on the edges from running backs, talking to Khalil Herbert. One thing that I would love to see Khalil do today is better with his help and his chips. To me, it almost feels like he gets into his check down too quickly, or, he'll just run past, a flash of color in opposite jersey and not give him a chip. That to me is frustrating. You can't do that. The first thing you have to worry about is making sure Justin's clean in that pocket before you get out on your route. Otherwise, he can't get you the ball. It's as simple as that. And so ultimately, that's going to be a pretty big deciding factor here for this game. We're moving on. What you need to know for this game against the Commanders. A couple of interesting stats here. In terms of wide receivers with the highest catch percentage in 2023 with a minimum of 20 targets, according to Next Gen Stats. Second in the league with 20 targets is Curtis Samuel, 85% catch rate. At 5 is Terry McLaurin, 26 targets, 21 catches, 80.8. So if you give these receivers an opportunity to catch the ball, they're going to catch the ball. Unfortunately, with the cover 2, a lot of cushion. It's just not a sticky defense. So ultimately, the hope is that there's adjustments here that allow tighter coverage, or else these receivers are going to run all over you. If you look at the rushing attack, let's look at the Bears. Team with the highest average rushing yards per attempt in 2023. The Bears are averaging 4.67 yards per attempt. So that's 102 attempts. Pretty solid. That's also with Justin not really contributing much in the run game, ultimately, right? I mean, Justin's been pretty bottled up because all opposing defenses know that they have to often spy him, do one of those drop zone spies, things of that nature. Now, Khalil Herbert was able to get over 100 yards, and that was in spite of some still bad pass rush blocking. There were a lot of missed assignments in that Broncos game, and ultimately Khalil Herbert actually was able to bail the line out of a couple things, and I think also Justin's presence helped. Now, with that being said, hopefully that running game continues tonight, and if you're focusing maybe on stopping Khalil Herbert, can Justin get going a little bit more in the run game as well? Because some of those QB designed runs in the Broncos game really didn't do all that much. A misleading stat to me is NFL tackle leaders entering week 5. Right now, at number 1, you have TJ Edwards with 51 tackles. And then at number 6, you have Tremaine Edmonds at 39. First of all, it's a decent discrepancy between TJ Edwards and Tremaine Edmonds. Tremaine, what are you doing? I know for the most part, his rollout linebacker is to drop back and be more concerned with coverage. But as I talked about at the beginning of the show, Tremaine has to play with a lot more instinct. He's got to make impact plays. If he's not going to do it tackling as a linebacker, then he has to do it in pass coverage as a linebacker. And how he's going to do that is that deep middle, right? It's going to be the slant routes. It's going to be those digs, things of that nature. And so far, he hasn't even really gotten his hand on balls. No pun intended. Pause. On each side of the ball, when you look at per Next Gen Stats, Justin Fields has 146.5 rating when targeting DJ Moore, the third highest rating amongst players who have been targeted 15 or more times. In addition to that, Kendall Fuller on the opposing side has allowed the second lowest passer rating at 35.1 amongst quarterbacks who have been targeted 15 plus times. So I would expect Kendall Fuller as much as possible to be on DJ Moore. And this is obvious. Throw the ball to DJ Moore. Force feed him the ball to an extent if you have to. I mean, don't throw into triple coverage. That's just dumb. But, going back to what I talked about earlier with that Cole Kmet route, the interception, have DJ Moore run that route. Right. There's plenty of times where there's a wide receiver-esque route being run by Cole. And I love Cole. He's on a couple of my fantasy teams. I think he's a much better tight end than a lot of people give him credit for. But at the end of the day, your best player is still number 2. Give number 2 the ball. Simple as that. So now we're going to move on to love it, hate it, rehabilitate it. So let's see where we're going to look at something that ultimately, that a matchup I love in the game, I hate in the game, and something that I would fix. Love. As odd as this sounds, I love the opportunity for the Bears pass rush to right itself, get some good feelings. If you look at the highest percentage of pressures that become sacks, number 1 in the league is Sam Howell at 35.8. Now, with that, that's pressures that become sacks. You have to get pressures first. So that might make this a bad choice for this section, but it is what it is. And then you look down the list: number 2, Ryan Tannehill; 3, Desmond Ridder; 4, Daniel Jones; 5, Derek Carr. Howell is the 12th most pressured quarterback at 38.1%. It can be argued some of the sack numbers are self-inflicted, though, because he's had an efficient time. He ranks 11th in average time to throw at 2.92 seconds. So I think this helps the Bears a little bit. Howell is holding on to the ball too long. The Bears can't get home. So potentially, if Howell can hold on to the ball a little bit, it may allow the Bears to actually create a little pressure, which may actually create some sacks. And it's just one of those things where, sometimes you got to get 1, sometimes you got to get 2, and all of a sudden now you're feeling it. And this game is played with so much, with confidence, with flow. Could this be something that not fixes, because this pass rush is unfixable? You just don't have the players. There's not enough athleticism on this defensive line. There's not enough nasty. There's not enough push. But at the same time, can you create something a little better so that you're not 31st in the league? Can you create something that you're 22nd? That's my love, and it's not a great one, but it's an opportunity. I hate, and I talked about this earlier already, that Bears O-line versus the Commanders D-line. Having Tevin back is huge. And it's a fine line you got to play with him, because when you're dealing with soft tissue issues, especially the calf, you got to be careful not to re-aggravate that. Now, 4 weeks plus, actually a little bit longer, should be enough time that the soft tissue issues are in the past. But just that calf, especially the soleus, the deeper calf muscle, is so important to lower body power and explosion, and especially look how Tevin is looking for pancakes in that run game. You got to hope he doesn't re-aggravate that. So that's potentially why he's going to be maybe on a snap count, potentially rotating today. I would love for him to start the whole time. I just don't see that happening, just because, as I've mentioned earlier, he has really not played any live football at all. And also, by the way, if there's any questions, feel free to throw that in the chat. It's just me talking here. If there's anything y'all want to ask, want to highlight, throw it in there. Rehabilitate. It's funny because I left this blank. I decided I want to do it on the fly. Because to me, the things you want to fix are so obvious. The things, and I guess for, it's not turning the ball over. It's not letting Justin get pressured. It's creating more pressure yourself. It's playing less soft coverage and just letting quarterbacks who are average in this league pick you apart. I mean, you can go down the list over and over and over again. I think a lot of these things are unfixable due to the talent you have on this roster as a whole. But what you can do is you can play to Justin's strengths. You can try to create confidence in a man who has had a lot thrown at him, and has, if anything, had that confidence dashed. After the 3 quarters Justin put out, you got conservative and you just started to run the ball over and over. You let him stay in the flow. Let him win you this game, because for damn sure the defense isn't winning it for you. For damn sure the running game just as a whole isn't winning it for you. The coaching isn't winning it for you. The only reason you're going to win this game is Justin winning it for you. So my rehabilitate is to just keep letting him do his thing. And ultimately knowing that if mistakes happen, to stick with him. Because as soon as you pull back on those reins hard, he's going to react. And all of a sudden now, that flow is gone. That confidence is gone. X factor for the Commanders, the pass rush. Justin is the Bears. Just like, I was just kind of alluding to that. You're not going to win this game any other way. You're not going to get a pick six that all of a sudden, seals the game for you. You're not going to out scheme the coaches on the other side of the ball, right? I mean, Luke Getsy is not, or Matt Eberflus, excuse me, is not out dueling Eric Bieniemy in an offensive defensive chess match. So if you shut down Justin Fields, if you can rattle him, you get, and if you take away what he wants to do, then the Commanders are going to win this game. For the Bears, Justin's the obvious answer, so I don't want to do that. I'm going to go back to Tevin Jenkins because to me, asserting dominance on that O-line is going to be huge. You hear that all the time from defensive linemen and edges in particular, but interior guys as well. They get frustrated, right, with chip blocks and with getting driven back and not knowing where that next blocker is coming from. So this offensive line as a whole is going to be big, but just the personality. There's not a strong personality on this offensive line. When you talk, Lucas Patrick is a good teammate. He's a good follower. Cody Whitehair is very held back. He's a pretty reserved dude. He's never been very outspoken. Nate Davis is super quiet from, the little I've heard about him. Darnell Wright's a rookie. And then you got Larry Borum, who's never been super out. You need Tevin Jenkins in there to push and create a mentality on this offensive line. Go back to, which game was that? Might have been a Packers game. I don't remember. All I specifically remember is that, Justin got hit late. Tevin went after the defensive player that hit him late. And then all of a sudden, Tevin's getting pulled off by a fellow teammate and being told not to do that. Tevin got a penalty. But at the end of the day, at least he stood up for his damn quarterback. You're seeing a little less of that this year, but also because Justin isn't necessarily running as much this year in terms of taking some of those late hits. But you need someone on that line to create a personality and a little nasty little edge. For me, that's going to be Tevin. Over unders. Normally I read these off and Danny will give you his impressions for this as well as our next score section. So I'm just going to do it. Not going to be quite as fun, but play along in the chat. Pressures on Justin Fields by the Commanders. The over under I have is at 9.5. I'm going to say the over. And that's in totality, right? That's literally if you just count all the recorded pressures. This O-line's just not that good. It's not that athletic. And this defensive line is fantastic. The question is more about will the pressure be generated but in a way that Justin can handle it, whether it's escaping or getting the ball off. TFLs for Tremaine Edmonds. I set the over under at half. Why? Because he had 3 all year. Talked about that earlier. Trash. I'm going to say under. I have no confidence in this defense as a whole. I have no confidence in Tremaine Edmonds right now for him to do anything different than it has been. So I don't know why that would change at this point, unless you scheme it to be that way. And I don't trust Matt Eberflus to scheme that. Bears penalty yards over under 75. They had 91 last week. This is supposed to be, the hits principle, right? Hustle, intensity, smart, all that jazz. This is not a smart football team. The stupid penalties. There's little twitches on the line. They're outmatched. Larry Borum ends up and Darnell Wright currently have been holding because they get beat on the edge. And the refs are staring right at it. So they're hoping, all right, let me just hold on for dear life and hope I don't get caught, but they're getting caught. All right. You have Darnell Wright blocking a guy down, a very unnecessary block downfield that brings the ball back last game. Not to pick on Darnell Wright, rookie mistake. I'm not anti Darnell Wright. I think he's going to be good, but he's got to learn from this stuff. So I'm going to say over because I think there's going to be a lot of offensive line issues. There's going to be some snap issues. There's going to be clock management issues. And all of a sudden now you get to that 75 pretty easily. Bears sacks, 1.5. I'm going to say over. I think they get 2 today. This Powell holds onto the ball a bit long. The main thing that'll take that away is, again, that soft coverage that cover 2 is, and the secondary issues. But if you can, scheme just a little pressure, it doesn't have to be real pressure. You don't have to necessarily always bring a 5th, 6th person, but can you, make it seem that way? Drop someone in coverage, bring another person off the edge. he's going to want to hold on to that ball because that's who Sam Howell is right now. So you can't potentially get to him. DJ Moore receiving yards over under 100 over. I do think you can. I mentioned Kendall Fuller again allowing the second lowest passer rating when passed to him, but he's not. I don't think he's going to say follow DJ around. In addition to that, you can take advantage of the secondary in other places a little bit, in this linebacking core a little bit. And if Luke Getzey is smart, and I'm hoping he is, all these guys are playing for their jobs, you should be able to chess piece move around to get DJ open. And I think they're going to lean on DJ because they know they have to. You have to win this game. And Justin Fields passer rating over under 100. I'm going to say over. I think he's going to stack some games here. I really do. I think he took a step. I don't think it was just the Broncos defense. Now, I know as a part of it, that Broncos defense sucks. It might be worse than the Bears defense somehow, or at least it's second worst. But I do think Justin truly took a step. I think he was decisive. Yes, there were some wide ass open receivers in that game, but there were some dimes in that game too. But take that flea flicker, which by the way, Khalil Herbert, can you pitch that ball back any slower? That was horrendous. Also, it was off center. Literally after the play, you could see Justin being like, dude, it was like way up into the side. He stood in the pocket, he got smoked, and he put it exactly where the ball needed to be to Equanimeous St. Brown. And also, good for Equanimeous St. Brown making that catch, because who's not making that catch? Chase Claypool. No way. He's not concentrating long enough to catch that on the second bobble. Think about the DJ Moore touchdown. Now, obviously, you can argue, was that truly a touchdown? It looks like his foot might have been off the right foot, I believe. But that ball was put exactly where it needed to be in order for only DJ to make that catch on that route. Justin can spin the damn ball. So if you can give him time, and if you can give him that confidence we're talking about, and I think he's getting that, as we saw last time, he'll be good. Game predictions against the line. Bears at Commanders. Commanders favored at 5.5. I'm going to take the Bears in this one against the line. I'm not convinced they win this game, but I think it'll be close. Just because I put the Commanders in the same realm as the Broncos. If you look, the Broncos got smacked by the Bills. The Commanders, they got smacked by the Bills. The Commanders barely beat the Broncos. The Commanders barely beat the Cardinals. And then they actually took the Eagles to overtime last week, which is interesting. I think the Eagles have a little something weird going on with them, to be completely honest. Losing both of their coordinators, offensive and defensive, has done a bit, and Jalen Hurts has not looked quite as sharp. But they still took a very good team to overtime. So Commanders are hard to figure out, but I still lump them in the same area where I don't think it's going to be a touchdown loss if it is one. Jaguars at Bills. This is just a fun game. Just two fun teams. Bills are favored by 5.5. I'll take the Bills in this one. The Jaguars offense has left a little bit to be desired, and it's even more so about just the Bills. The Bills look good. They found the right balance of letting this kaiju beast of Josh Allen do Josh Allen things, combining it with this run game. So it's more like unleashing him when you need to versus just having to go rampage the whole time. And this Bills defense, they're flying around. And I believe Von Miller should be playing in this game too. So that's going to help substantially, having a little more pass rush too. So I think the Jaguars offense has been kind of weird the last couple of weeks. They were good week 1, and then just haven't been since then. Panthers at Lions. Lions favored by 9.5. That is a lot of points. But so far, the Panthers have shown me pretty much nothing to expect any different, and the Lions have looked good. I will begrudgingly say the Lions may not be the Lions anymore. And so I'll actually pick the Lions in this one. It's one I would stay away from if I was truly betting on it. I don't want to, that's a big number. But, just for the sake of getting records on here, I'll go with them. Chiefs at Vikings. Chiefs are favored by 5. They had a weird game against the Jets. I wouldn't, and Mahomes didn't look super Mahomesy until the end of that game where he had to do what he needed to. So he's not going to come out twice like that. And I mentioned this obviously in our pregame show when we talked about the Chiefs Bears game. That offense is not right. Whether it's a lack of Eric Bieniemy on the offensive play call side, whether it's just the lack of their weapons outside of Travis Kelce, the Sky Moores and Kadarius Tonys are just not cutting it. If anything, I think they need to make a trade for a receiver. Hey, call for Chase Claypool. He'll be terrible for you, but make the trade. So yeah, I'll take the Chiefs in this one. The Vikings have shown they will hit ebbs and flows. They're a lot of ebb and flow team. They'll usually come back on you. The defense though, with Flores at the helm, has not necessarily looked great. And I don't expect again. I don't expect Mahomes to have 2 games like that in a row. Packers at Raiders. Packers are favored. Keep this one pretty simple. I'm going to take the Packers. I think a lot of the Jordan Love stuff is it's a bit of a veil, and I think it's actually perfect as a Bears fan, where he's going to be just good enough where this team commits to him, and you're going to end up at a very middle of the road quarterback, which I am very happy with. He looks very bleh for the first quarter or two, and then ends up the defense has been very good this year. It has helped. The Raiders, I'm not going to lie, I haven't watched a ton of Raiders, and I need to because obviously the Bears are playing them next week. But Jimmy Garoppolo is not something that you get super excited about at quarterback. Devontae was hurt partially in that last game, came back in, but he'll be back for this one. Jacoby Myers is a solid player, but he had a great week 1 and then hasn't really shown up since. Josh Jacobs, after leading the league in rushing last year, has come back down to earth a bit. I'll take the Packers in this one. Getting close to the end here, a coccyx and bull story. A cock and bull story, something so crazy, something bold. Hence our bold prediction section. Bold prediction for tonight: offense. Justin has 0 turnovers. I think he's going to play a clean game. No interceptions, no fumbles. TJ Edwards gets a turnover. I'm not going with Tremaine. Tremaine's in my doghouse. I'll be surprised if he can cover a cold, can tackle a toddler. But right now, TJ Edwards, he gets my nod, whether it's directly, whether it's a tip ball, maybe the defensive line does something and tips a ball in the air and he gets it. But TJ Edwards gets a turnover. Offensive player of the game, I could very easily go Justin here. I'm not going to for obvious reasons. I'm going to say Darnell Mooney. While, yes, I think DJ Moore is going to lead the charge in terms of receiving, that Darnell, though, is going to really step in as that number 2 receiver and take some onus off. So when DJ gets double covered, when he's taken away, Darnell finding spots in order to help. Defensive player of the game. I am going to. I had Brisker written here before all the injury stuff popped up. I'm still not even sure he's going to play. So we have to wait and see what the inactives that should be up soon or is already up. So go check that out because I'm not 100% on that. There you go. Bear safety, Jaquan Brisker plans to play tonight versus the Commanders. With Jalen Johnson and Eddie Jackson ruled out, secondary needs the help. That's from Jeremy Fowler. So Jaquan Brisker is going to be in there. Oh, he's hobbled. You know what? Screw it. I'm going to say it. He's the defensive player of the game. He's going to make some awesome plays. And you need it with like I said, those other guys out. King of the North, aka MVP. We should just get rid of this category because it's Justin. I said it earlier. Justin is the Bears, and whether that's a good or bad thing, this team is going to rise or fall with what he does. And I think this short week's going to be good for him. You hear that all the time too. Some of the people who've been in the league, I've been able to talk to, and some coaches and other things like that. You don't even really show the players the tape on a short week like this. There's just not time. By the time you're in the building on Monday, you're already having to prepare for Thursday. So, you almost hope that they threw together like a highlight reel of like the first 3 quarters, and it's like, all right, Justin, that's what we need. That's what you focus on. Take care of the ball and do that. And if that can happen, the Bears can actually pull this game off. I know I was, relatively non-committal. I'm taking, like I said, I am going to take the Bears against that line, but we'll see. I don't like the term must win because, 17 games, especially this early in the season, you don't like throwing that label on stuff like this. But I'm going to say that it is because winning teams don't lose that game against the Broncos, right? Winning teams win that. This team, as corny as it sounds, this team has to learn how to win. And that's a mentality. Go out and win this game so that you have a chance against the Raiders. You have a chance against the Saints. You have a chance to, upset the Lions and, maybe split 1-1 to take advantage of a Vikings team that seems a little lost, right, at 1-3. But it has to start today. If it doesn't, if you're 0-5 and you're going to go into that mini bye week, that all that time to dwell and sit and stew about how you're 0-5, and all the dissent and disarray and distress that's going to be going on in Hallis Hall of, is Coach Eberflus going to be fired, right? What are we going to do here? You can't do that. So I don't love it, but for me, it's a must win. One last thing before we go: Chicago Bears released a statement from the Buckus family on their Twitter. The Buckus family confirms the football entertainment legend Dick Butkus died peacefully in his sleep overnight at home in Malibu, California. The Butkus family is gathering with Dick's wife, Helen. They appreciate your prayers and support. Additional information will be provided when it is available. So tonight, when you're watching this game, think about Dick Butkus, think about his family, think about your loved ones, hold them close, and let's see if we can go out there and get a win today for Mr. Butkus. That is all. Bear down, everybody.